there's a member of the hospital, there's a member of the family sick in the hospital, the children. There's a family there all the time. And usually it's the mother sitting on the bed. If there are 2 or 3, then the grandmother and the aunt, and if there's not enough women, the men come. The families are there all the time. And it's hard to walk through the wards for children and for newborns and spend an hour there without hearing a sudden wail. They have a total lack of inhibition. I mean, we're shy in death, you know. When death hits Arab people, I've seen it. There was a cemetery in the Iranians who lived during the Shah's period. If you get within a few hundred yards of that, you can hear people wailing. They just wait. Oh, this is a reflex. And you're walking through, and all of a sudden, the mother's sitting on the bed. You saw this little infant with toothpick arms, you know, and all red. And the mother wails, you know, the baby died. By August of '91, UNICEF, United Nations Children's Fund, reported 47,500 deaths of infants from bad water alone. All the medications for the civilian agencies were being delivered by the Red Crescent, and they had about 7 vehicles. And they didn't have enough rehydration tablets, which cost nothing. To save an infant or a baby or a young child from dehydrating as you can in 48 hours and be dead. And a pill that doesn't cost a nickel to prevent that. They didn't have enough. And by '97, the UN, for every UN agency and every major public agency, the Red Crescent, which is the Islamic equivalent of the Red Cross, and they work together, have confirmed what happened there. Food and Agriculture Organization in '97 reported that 475,000 children under the age of 5 had died as a direct result of sanctions. Here's a UN agency reporting on a UN sanction that it has caused the death of 400. You may remember that our Secretary of State at that time, Madeleine Albright, was asked by a blonde woman from Texas who was big on CBS. I can't think of her name offhand. She read from the report, said, why 475 children is the price worth it? We usually say, is it worth the price? For some reason, it says the price worth it. Madeleine Albright turned to the camera and said, that's a very difficult question, but yes, the price is worth it. Tell me what's worth the lives of 475,000 little children, for God's sake. Total number of deaths. So they're going to stand up and fight? I mean, by today, there are more than 5 million people exiled and refugee camps from Iraq. 20% of the population. And more than 2.5 million internal exiles. They had to leave where they'd always lived and try to go someplace else and try to find a place to live and try to stay alive. And no one has any security at any time. You can't be sure whether the bomb's going to go off right now. And the kids miss years of education. And, you know, it's not just the children that died. The other children were malnourished, too. And they were scrawny. A team of British doctors went in there and they started measuring everybody. And they said there's going to be a stunted generation of Iraqis. Smaller. They won't live as long, you know. They'll have organ damages because of these sanctions. And they had no way of rebuilding their army. And suppose they had a nuclear weapon, for God's sake. Doesn't North Korea have them? Doesn't Israel have them? Didn't we give them to Israel? Right in the middle of the hornet's nest? What country can feel it's independent if it lives near a hostile country that has a nuclear weapon and it doesn't? So we live in a time of enormous moral crises, and we have to act. And the crimes committed by the Bush administration begin with the supreme international crime, as defined by the Nuremberg Charter and by the Nuremberg judgment. And the judges parsed it out. They said Austria wasn't a war of aggression because it had accepted the Nazi troops in. It said Sudetenland, remember that little strip on the west side of Czechoslovakia, wasn't a war of aggression because it had been approved at Munich. Chamberlain, with his black umbrella, had agreed with the Germans that they could take Sudetenland. But then there were 19 consecutive wars of aggression, beginning with Poland, where they just came blitzkrieg across the borders. George Bush committed a war of aggression, the supreme international crime without question. Now, it has to be proven in a court. I'll tell you, if no court considers it, then we're not a government involved. We're a police state. When the police and government officials are not accountable by law, you're a police state by definition. And that's where we are. We're the luckiest people that ever came along. I don't know that we deserve it. We better do something for it. We have to help ourselves understand that unless in a time of moral crisis we act, we perish. Our militarism is beyond imagination. We spend more on arms than the rest of the world combined. We'll be a menace to the world until our military budget is cut 90%. We'd be a lot safer if we cut it. Let me tell you, 10% fight anybody around that's going to take them on easily without more research and development for cheap ways to kill lots of people in a single shot. But this industry has us in its grips. Madeleine Albright gave it away with Powell. Powell was Secretary of Defense. She was upset because he wasn't doing enough in Bosnia. And she said to him, it was amazing because he got it in public, so on TV. She turned to Powell and she said, what do you need all those guns for if you're not going to use them? Well, of course. You don't just lay them around someplace, you know. You buy them because you intend to use them. And we use them and we give them to other people to use them. And that's our responsibility. It's our tax money for one thing. We don't worry about taxes. My income is not much of a problem. For some people it's inconvenience, I understand it. But it's worse than inconvenience if it goes for militarism because it's murder. So what happens? Does a citizen have a right to arrest, and under what circumstances? Well, we'd all hope, wouldn't we, that if someone just murdered a member of your family was running out the door, the police didn't even know about you. Your Canadian law, if the police don't know about you, you can't make an arrest technically. I think that's the real law. I don't even think it's Canadian law, but it's what the statute says. The police have to be in pursuit or have a warrant. But you're trying to tell me that you shouldn't pursue and try to capture somebody that just murdered some member of your family or your neighbor or somebody like that, or call the police and you go speeding after them so they don't get away? And when a person who is allegedly responsible for not only the supreme international crime, but for torture. I don't think there are many people my age who ever believed that the United States would authorize torture. It just didn't occur.